super duper princess.
Hello, Internet, and welcome to the VinnyMac's 9 Radio Show podcast, the most radioactive show on the planet. Thanks for tuning in tonight for episode 1303 of the podcast, coming to you live from the VinnyMac Productions live studios here in Central Virginia. I'm joined here in the studio with my typical co-host, Matt Sarase Johnson.
Howdy, everyone.
And new to the Chumps crew, the Game Chumps crew, to be more specific for those of you guys who are new to the show, MC Percolator.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Thanks for coming to the podcast and joining us. MC Percolator is our fourth member of the Game Chumps crew.
Oh, is that my turn to talk now? Okay.
Well,
I think this sounds like fun.
That depends on if you actually want to say something. It's all good.
I'm glad to be here. I've always been great friends with Matthew Sarasi Johnson, and I recently became good friends with Vinny. And I'm yet to meet our other co-host. What's his one? Mr. Tenwug. That's what it is.
Tenwug.
Still yet to meet him. Hopefully, I'll meet him in a few months.
That's okay. For those of you guys who remember the last episode of the podcast, we were down at Tenwug's place in Arlington, Texas, where we came to you live, and we had a lot of fun. We talked about his life, his struggles, and his current career of voice acting, and of course, Matt Sarasi Johnson's life and everything leading up to YouTube, content creation, animation, things of that nature. And, of course, we touched briefly on such topics like ASMR, which was a great time because Tenwug was definitely interested in hearing more about that. And a couple of other fun topics. So it was definitely a good time. We all know that you guys who were with us had a good time as well. And we hope you have a good time tonight. So I'm DJ Vince VinnyMac. For those of you guys who don't know, I've been doing broadcast radio for a little over 12 years. Since the end of the show, back in 2009, we did all kinds of things from broadcasting, doing our own segments on VinnyMacRadio.com, doing writing for various broadcasting entities and various shows out there, and also spent a lot of time working with folks in the video game and video game music industry, both with their work and also doing a bit of education with those out there who wanted to know more about the field. It's been an exciting time since the end of the show. Definitely don't have the staff like I used to. But then again, when you're on mainstream broadcasting, doing your own podcast, you're kind of on your own, and that's cool.
Hey, at least you get to make all decisions.
Well, the funny thing, though, about when I did the show is the fact that I was very adamant to ensure, especially when it came to advertising, that things that were advertised on the show were things that I would approve and or use in my everyday life. So it was pretty much, and a lot of people are very surprised at actually being able to accomplish that, because we all know that in most industries, whether it be broadcasting on the FM side, the satellite side, or on the online perspective, 9 times out of 10, if you're with a major network, you usually don't get to make those decisions.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, did, because my show was relatively popular / underground in the sense that there was a demand for it if you were aware of it. And we definitely had a good time, especially with those who were a part of the Top 9 Request Countdown, which was the heart and soul of the show, aside from the fact that we featured all kinds of different DJs, guests, hosts, what have you, on the show, coming from a broad spectrum from all over the world, and it was just a fun time. And for those of you guys who are new to the show, one of the things that you may not be aware of is the fact that when we started the show, broadband certainly is not where it is today. And as a result, we had to build all sorts of technology that just was not available during that time to provide the show all over the world, because not only did we broadcast on FM radio, but we also broadcasted all over the world, and that's actually where most of our listeners came from. So if you were aware of the show and you were not in our home area, then it was okay, because it brought a lot of diversity to the program, and we were definitely grateful for it.
Is there any way we can go back and listen to those past recordings?
Unfortunately, there are a very small number of recordings that I still have, primarily because, as me and Rossi talked about a while back, unfortunately, thanks to a very complicated issue that occurred right after the show's end, most of the show data, except for some temp data that I have, which is how I'm able to actually have some of the stuff that I would be slightly more than willing to share than not. It's not exactly the best material, but the problem is that we had a big data disk failure, and I actually still have some of the disks that were part of that system upstairs in the office. And one of the things that me and Rossi talked about is, would it be beneficial to go to a data recovery specialist and actually have that data recovered, or would it be better to just continue doing what we're doing and just make new content? And I decided a while back that, especially when I looked at how much it would cost to recover the data the way that it was saved, and bear in mind that it was using enterprise grade technologies during that time, and there was a lawsuit that was involved in regards to the way that technology worked. So it wasn't like it was something that we did, or it was a software defect that caused corruption, and then later the disks just failed and would never spin up again. And so as a result, the data's still there. I just can't actually access it. So the fact of the matter is that we've talked about it, thought about it, and it's just not really going to be worth the insane amount of money it would cost to recover this data.
Yeah.
So as a result, I'm just more concerned about working with the community, working with those in the industry, those who would like to learn more about this particular field and need some help doing it, whether it be actually learning it and or helping with the hardware and software acquisition, depending upon what you're trying to accomplish. In some cases, not all, in some cases I'm more than happy to help, especially with software and hardware acquisitions. Some people come up to me and expect that I just throw cash at them to help them with these endeavors. And the sad reality is, if you come up to me, especially with that notion to help you financially with a project that I know nothing about, I'm probably not going to have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Unless it is something that I think is going to greatly enhance the community based upon what it is you're trying to do. So in that respect, I'm very critical as far as what type of projects that I support over the projects that I don't support. So don't come to me and think that just because you want something and you have something that you think I might be interested in, that's probably not the best way to approach it. And especially if you try to come to me on more than one social media platform or method of communication, I'm probably not going to be interested in talking to you, because that generally means I'm either busy and or that I just flat out am not interested in your project.
You're straight like Godfather status when you're saying that.
I mean, the fact that he was like staring at me the whole time saying that, is just and seeing you, like if it was personal, he's just like, no, MC, I'm not going to give you shit.
MC Percolator, or MCP as I like to call you. Yeah, that's the way I was looking at you, because you and I were having a conversation.
He's already gotten the speech before.
No, I mean, you and I were having a conversation, so as a result, I'm talking to you, not Rossi here. So, and yes, he has heard a lot of what we just talked about, but that's the bottom line.
Yeah, and I apologize if I'm bringing up past topics, because I don't know what you guys have and haven't talked about.
What I'm talking about is stuff that me and Rossi have talked about personally, not things we've talked about necessarily on the show. So this stuff may be new to the people out there, not new to Rossi, just new to you and some of the people who have never tuned in before. But yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it can be recovered. I technically do have the stuff. It's just not accessible.
Yeah.
And I do have some things that are accessible, much like the stuff that you'll find on VinnyMacRadio.com. You'll notice that there is a long clips page. And it's it literally has a description that says this is the most raw audio data you'll hear from the show, and that is because that was from temporary data.
Mic drop.
I can't lie. I can't lie. That's all from temp space.
Yeah.
And not from actual production quality recordings, because again, that was really all I was able to sadly pull out of the wreckage as quickly as that system crashed and burned, which is why I have like so much redundancy now, to the point where it's almost insane. And people wonder why I do it, and it's primarily just because of the fact that I've been through many sets of data losses out there, and the sad reality is that you can't really recover from them And sadly, you just have to part with that information.
I mean, I can only imagine if you have a show for that long, and then you talk about something, and you forget you completely talked about a topic, and you get an email or a comment back, and it's like, "Yo, bro, you said this like 3 years ago. You might want to get some new material." Like,
well, we rarely ever had anything quite like that. Primarily because the show was fairly diverse in terms of the type of things we did on the show. I mean, sure, the top 9 request countdown was definitely the heart and soul of the show, and sure, could have gotten repetitive. I'm not going to say it never did, because it certainly did, and that's primarily because those who are requesting music on the show know what they like, and they like a set number of things.
A certain genre. I mean, it's kind of linear thinking, I can imagine.
Sure, and I mean, yeah, we had a lot of diversity on the show, but from my perspective, I think it was fairly inconsistent at times as far as the type of programming that we had, just primarily because of the type of people we had on the show and the people that we featured. Not just the fact of the top 9 request countdown.
Yeah.
And if you ever look on the About page on VinnyMacRadio.com, which, as I've said before, is one of those things you want to grab a Snickers because it's going to take you a long time to read. And I've often thought about offering some sort of prize to everybody whoever completed it and was able to, as in actually looked at every photo and read everything and was able to remember everything. Not just like go skimming through it and going, oh, I read it and I know everything that happened. Because that's the thing, when you've been in the industry as long as I have, there's no real way, aside from writing a book, to illustrate everything that you've done. And I mean, the About page is really just kind of an overview, despite the fact of how long it is.
But that kind of reminds me of like the iTunes terms and agreements. Like, no one's ever going to read that. And the people who do find the most hilarious stuff. I've seen parts where somebody just gets bored with writing the terms and agreements and throws in somebody's name and says, he needs to stop pooping so loud.
Yeah, he kind of does.
So what you're saying is that there's not going to be a Vinny Mac biography, like citing everything at this moment in the works.
Well, no, I'm just saying that if you're going to go onto the website, you kind of have to look at it that way, because it's not a book, and I'm not, I have not written a book or anything of that nature. So it's kind of like a short book in the sense as far as the length, but in itself, it's more or less just a global overview of everything that we would typically do on a show, and/or things that I did after the show, as far as things that were just part of what we were doing at the time.
That's pretty cool, man.
And again, we had to build encoding technology to make the show possible, in addition to purchase server and network capacity to provide the show all over the world. Because again, broadband isn't where it is today. You can't get a 50 megabit down connection like you can in most places, at least in most major areas these days. Back then, you were lucky if you had maybe 3 down.
That's nuts.
And maybe 512K up. And because of that, it was, we had people that we did kind of an interesting multiplexing scheme inside our network, to where we could span it up over multiple ISPs so that we could have that additional upload.
Mm-hmm.
But that still didn't help, because we still had an insane number of people coming in. So that's why we had to purchase additional server and network capacity all over the world, so that we could essentially send that stream to those other locations so that people could log in based on their region. And that's not something that like the user would actually have to figure out how to do. That would happen on its own based upon DNS and other network related things. And it was pretty insane, the type of things that we had to do to get it going, because we broadcasted in 3 different formats. So we broadcasted primarily using MP3, AAC, and Windows Media. We did do some testing with Real Media, Icecast, which is essentially MP3 or AAC. You're just using a different directory to list it.
This sounds like terms that you'd use in like 2007.
Yeah, and this is true, because we're talking like back in 2002, 2003, 2004, when all this stuff started, where you didn't have content platforms like YouTube, Hitbox, Twitch TV, things like that, to where you could broadcast and send those.
It wasn't as easy back then.
Definitely not.
I guess the question for it that a lot of people have been wondering about is that if you had, for like a shoestring budget, someone just trying to make their own podcast for the first time, what would be like 3 things you would say that they have to make sure to brush up on before they even attempt this?
Didn't think we'd quite go there, but that's
Editing,
okay.
maybe? I don't know.
Well, I mean, if you're doing a podcast, editing is certainly a big thing. So, sure, editing will definitely be a very important thing. And I suppose it also depends upon how you plan on delivering the podcast, because like we do it live, at least during the first run, and then we make it available on such platforms like VinnyMac's.com, Mixcloud, and YouTube. Those are really the only platforms that we currently utilize to host an archive copy. And that's really all it is, just an archive copy. But if you plan on hosting it on iTunes or Google Play or any of the other major podcast platforms that you would put a podcast on, certainly you want to make sure that you have a fairly decent recording mechanism, whether that be a fairly decent recording device, or in our case, we've got some fairly decent microphones that we have connected up to a fairly decent recording device, which then interface with our computer here.
Yeah.
So definitely would be a decent recording device. Brush up on editing, particularly audio editing, because at least in most cases it's going to be audio only. There's typically not a video component to that. And then I suppose if I had to give a third thing, it would probably be to speak properly.
Yeah.
Enunciation, the number one thing that you probably could ever do to help your life.
Enunciation, clear speaking, things of that nature.
I tend to try to practice like Ron Burgundy does before he gets on air. Like, the Human Torch was denied a bank loan. How now, brown cow? Maybe drinking some bourbon before. I don't know. That's just me.
Absolutely.
It's just me.
That's part of your care package scenario.
But I definitely wouldn't suggest smoking crack on live TV. That's just not cool.
I don't suggest smoking any illegal substance on any.
Also, just smoking in general for if you're doing a podcast is just not a good idea. You would alter your voice like by cigarettes, maybe drop it down a few notches. It's still not going to help.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a good idea.
No. Don't do drugs, kids.
No.
And become contributing members of society.
I mean, if anything, in terms of substances, maybe a little bit of alcohol, whether that be beer or a liquor of some kind. In my case, it's going to be rum. We all know that I like my rum, and I swear, if anybody ever gives me coconut rum, you're done.
VinnyMac's part pirate.
No.
Done as in like
as in
no more friends.
As in that's it. As in I do not like coconut rum at all.
That is well noted.
People get this, I don't know, they get this thing in their head where they think that because I like rum, that I'm going to like coconut rum. And I don't know why people get that assumption.
I mean, that's like saying I love beer, but that's like assuming I like light beer. I mean, it's there, but I mean, I'd rather drink craft.
You do like beer. Come
no,
on.
I'm not. I'm just because I work for Miller doesn't mean that I can't really say that. I mean, I gotta like it. They pay my bills. No, I'm just kidding. It's a great company to work for.
And I guess on that end, a good a good thing about enunciation is sometimes you get that little there, but a good segue into you and talking about beer. You actually have a long kind of history with beer in this case too. At this point now, and that if you have beer questions, Percolator over here, our MCP, is going to be your beer guy at any con revenue spot at all times.
And make sure, especially if you're consuming any of this, that you are of the appropriate age based upon your locale.
Absolutely. Please don't be asking me questions if you ever meet me in person. If you're under 21, it's just it's not cool. I mean, be responsible.
Exactly.
Having knowledge is one thing, but asking questions about where you can get it is, well, that's kind of a silly question. But two, I probably wouldn't be talking to you about beer knowledge unless you're over the age of 21.
There you have it. From the man's mouth.
I appreciate you calling me a man. That's well noted. I appreciate that.
Okay,
Bruce
fine.
Wayne goes just a little bit.
From the MC's mouth. How about that?
That's equivalent. That's okay.
I think that's slightly better, actually. At least I think so.
From the MC's mouth.
From the MC's mouth. Hey, he's an MC, so it's
what? Tiny Rick.
Tiny Rick, bitch. What up, my Helsings?
Yeah, we are huge fans of the show Rick and Morty.
Absolutely.
Die-hard
we watched
fans.
the entire both seasons in an afternoon, and I can't stop watching it. It's awesome. Tiny Rick.
Tiny Rick, yeah, love it.
I almost end up every sentence with Tiny Rick.
It's just great. Everything's great. The animation, the writing, the catchphrases. Got to love the catchphrases.
Oh my gosh. Time to get riggedy wrecked, son. That's for people. You can only say that over you're 21. That's not cool. That's probably not good to say in front of your parents. But time to get riggedy wrecked.
And that's the way the news goes.
I wish I could remember the rest of those sayings that he had. And I had an entire episode of just him saying different things. He's like, I always say that. I always say that. You only hear it like once during the 2 seasons.
This is true. And then, of course, you gotta love the box in the garage.
The box.
That says time travel stuff.
And they never really touch it. They just knock it over.
And there's a reason for that, and maybe we'll find out in season 3 why that is.
There's a lot of things that I have questions for Rick and Morty, but I'd rather not even bother asking them until the next season comes out.
That's probably wise.
Yeah,
Probably
I mean, that's just me. The rest of you can write blogs and ask people random questions and email the writers, but they're probably not going to tell you anything.
Actually, no, that's the thing though about the writers of Rick and Morty is that they're very, very, all.
Are they open? They just don't really care. They just tell you.
No, they're fairly open with the community. So if you have a question or a suggestion or really anything for that matter, they're not necessarily that you'll get a direct answer, but they're usually pretty good about handling the community.
Yeah,
I think so anyway.
Well, which is also good. Instead of just being like, no, wait for the next season. You're spoiling it for everyone.
But that's the great thing about a show like that, which is another reason why I like it.
It's all spontaneous.
Is the fact that, well, yeah, there's a little bit of that. Is the fact that because you have this community interaction, you're able to take some of the suggestions that the community has and pump it into the show to make it so much more hilarious. So that, especially, if there's a group of people, like on a forum thread, for example, they can be like, wow, we actually had something to do with that.
Which would be pretty cool. I mean, I would get a laugh out of that.
And I
knew anybody that had an idea and then it spontaneously showed up on the show like a year later.
And I have seen a couple of examples of that. And, I mean, there aren't too many shows out there that do anything quite like that.
Like hamsters that live in people's butts.
I actually did hear that...
that sounds like an idea somebody would come up with. Like, I was tripping LSD the other day and thought of these hamsters living out of people's butts. And they're living in another dimension in the Rick and Morty universe. Boom. Wait, how'd you say it earlier? How'd you do that sound effect?
Boom! Boom. And that is for the archive, ladies and gentlemen.
just whenever you're having
I hope
a
that sound
bad
puts you
day.
to sleep at night.
Yeah, whenever you have a bad time, if you just need a stock effect for any of your movies, anytime you see a bang or boom, it's BOOM! And then boom.
I was gonna sound like Meatwad for a second, but I don't want to ruin it.
Yeah.
So there aren't too many Adult Swim originals that I really, really like I do Rick and Morty. So that's definitely amazing that there's a show out there on Adult Swim that has caught my eye to the point where I'm almost, but not quite, almost obsessed with it.
Absolutely. And good news is that won't be for long because Samurai Jack, I've been waiting to talk about this, but Samurai Jack's around the corner.
That's true.
They had the was it preview? I remember the trailer. Not even really a trailer, just a preview for the future.
Yeah, it was maybe 4 seconds.
The nostalgia hit me like crazy.
So you have Samurai Jack around the corner, and then Cartoon Network now and ever is going through this interesting renaissance. They have things like Gravity Falls coming out, wrapping up now at this point. And they have a lot of shows that challenge a lot of the ideas for how writing's supposed to be, where it's no longer supposed to be this really kiddie, formulaic formula. Now it has a continuation plot that has something built on it and tackles a lot of more adult things, no matter what. It's actually turning out to be really cool, like video and media. Been finding that it's a lot better than a lot of the TV shows that you can find anywhere else.
I think it's great that a lot of the TV shows that we grew up watching is well, mainly 90s kids, 80s, 90s kids grew up watching Cartoon Network and these original TV shows like Johnny Bravo and Dexter's Laboratory and all these great shows that we grew up watching that when they stopped airing on TV, we all missed it. We were all always waiting for the next good show to come on. And then we just got filled with mediocre shows in between there. Besides SpongeBob. SpongeBob will always be my main man. The show's obviously evolved over the years, but some of the original episodes were the best. But I mean, I think it's great now that Rick and Morty's out. It's such a relevant show to people who watched these cartoons that were great growing up, like Ed, Edd and Eddy and Scooby-Doo and some of these great TV shows that we grew up watching, that the same group of kids that grew up watching these shows can watch Rick and Morty, and I think it's great.
So I don't think that it was in the archive copy of Rick and Morty at the very end of the episode of season 2. They actually have a Rick and Morty hotline that you can call to leave a voicemail for the creators. Whoa. I don't know if it's still up, but that was the thing after the episode aired. They gave you, I think it was an 844 number, where you could call and leave a voicemail for the creators.
That sounds awesome.
So
I might try to look that up.
It takes a lot of guts when you're able to be like, you know what we're going to do is we're going to put all of it out there. We want to see what comes in. Be as strange and crazy as you want because we want to see how far we can take this. It's essentially like a really messed up, like, Archer version of Doctor Who is what they're making right now. Of like this continuation of just everything is a huge fantastical plot that has some little relevance between it, but it keeps getting refreshed by the imagination of the viewers.
Absolutely. I'm sincerely impressed by the shows that continue to push boundaries and see how far they can go with their content. I
am sad, but also not, because I think it would probably change the quality of the show. But I'm sad that we don't have a standard 23, 24 episodes in a season as opposed to the 10 that we've gotten.
I feel like it's enough, though. Just because you can watch every episode over and over and over and over and over again and still laugh.
Is that they keep it short enough that it's right before it hits that boundary, before it becomes repetitive.
Well, it makes you want more.
If any of you guys have actually looked at some of the notes from Rick and Morty, you'll know that originally the show, the creators wanted it to only be, like Robot Chicken, where it was only 11, 12, 13 minutes. But, of course, Cartoon Network wanted it, to be a full 22, 23-minute show. Mm-hmm. And although I think that's a drastic change from what they wanted, I think that was definitely a good move because that meant that they had a lot more to work with.
Absolutely. I mean, it just reminds me of when they broke down SpongeBob episodes. It's like 2 episodes in one 30-minute period. So like you can get one episode before the commercial break, and then and that's it. That's all you got. But for this one, you can actually have a cliffhanger on the show where you're like, holy crap, what's going to happen next?
And you can do it at the end of a season and not get completely, pissed off by the viewers.
And go ahead.
The big thing on this that is just crazy is to think about when we were growing up as well. We went through the writer's strike, which was a moment in a lot of television when the writing got so bad that a lot of these TV shows got pulled. And to see this refreshing occurrence where the writing's being all buffed up now, that when you see the shows like Rick and Morty coming out, you now have this renewed faith. We've come into this time in life where we see these shows that are very formulaic being broken down. And the important part is that with things like Rick and Morty, you can now come in every day getting that wild, I have no idea what's going to happen, and I can't even begin to fathom what will happen.
But then you have Carl's Jr. and Hardee's taking advantage of Rick and Morty and doing what, advertising is supposed to do, and take a popular show and combine it with something like Carl's Jr. and Hardee's and make me now want to go to Hardee's since I'm on the East Coast. And
wait, all right, hold on. Hardee's is only an East Coast thing?
Carl's Jr., as far as I know, is just a West Coast thing. So, from where I go, that's just how it appears to me.
Yeah, I spent most of my life in North Carolina, so all I know is Bojangles, Sweet Tea. I know of In-N-Out Burger because I've been to California before, but I've always only lived on the East Coast.
Yeah, so as far as I know, Hardee's is just a East Coast thing. There may be some locations in the middle section of the country, but
yeah.
Carl's Jr., as far as I understand, is just a West Coast thing. But they're all the same company. They offer similar things, if not the same.
Yeah.
They're just different, different names. But anyway, bottom line is that makes me want to go to Hardee's regardless of what I want to eat.
Yeah,
That was
And
they're able to make fun of themselves, and that's the best part.
and of course they use the first 2 minutes of the pilot episode as the means to poke fun at Hardee's and Carl's Jr., which was fantastic.
Oh man.
I
love
remember.
this show
I
so
remember when I first caught the first maybe 3 or 4 episodes. I was literally saying to myself, "I will never love this show, and this has got to be the craziest stuff I've ever seen."
It took me a few minutes to get into it, but once it started breaking down, it just threw everything it had at me in the first pilot episode, and it hooked me immediately. I couldn't wait to see the next episode.
Well, see, that was the thing that I guess is probably different between me and a lot of other people is the fact that I caught it live, when it was first coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a little different perspective at the time. And of course I had my housemate here too. So he was the one that kind of wanted to show it to me.
Yeah.
Because he was more aware of it than I was. And of course it's really funny how that goes, because I think a lot of the things that he shows me, at least at first, are really crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And then most of the time I'm like, that's probably not going to work for me, or is it going to do it for me? But in this case it was a little different, because I'm like, psh, especially after first,
I mean, the first episode, and if you got hooked on the first episode, you had to wait a whole week for another one. I feel that way about One Punch Man right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
One Punch Man, the anime. It came out about almost 10 weeks ago. In Japan, it's all in subtitles right now, so it's a brand new anime. And had years of existing manga and webcomics, and I absolutely laughed out loud. No other anime, no other cartoon has actually had me laughing out loud for the entire episode.
And to your point on that was one of those interesting ones where I believe it started off as a webcomic first, and it was just like it had a trial run. Out of nowhere, people thought it was like, we really want to make this something cool, and then it came out to be. Our TV shows this year have been very interesting when I've stuck. We've had like the American Horror Story, we've had like other ones try to come back, like Heroes with Heroes Reborn. That was kind of hit or miss. But then you have these other shows that are just coming out of the woodworks out of nowhere and shocking and awing us.
Absolutely. But
I'm Tiny Rick, bitch!
Tiny Rick, bitch! Oh, we told you, calling somebody a bitch is not scary enough. For those of you who haven't seen any episodes of Rick and Morty, it was like an Inception episode where they went into other people's dreams inside their own dreams.
So aside from Tiny Rick, because I think that we can agree that that's probably everyone's
trademark.
Everyone's favorite. That probably is the trademark of the show.
Or getting swifted.
Getting swifted. No, I don't think you know what it means.
So, and aside from that, because I think that's probably another one of those more popular phrases to say, what would be your favorite part? And I guess I'll go with mine first, just so you guys get an idea of what I'm trying to ask here.
Yeah.
So I actually have 2.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, my ultimate favorite is probably the "You don't know me" from Mrs. Pancakes.
Oh my gosh.
Then let me get to know you, damn it. Next week on the Days in Life of Mrs. Pancakes.
You look so
You don't know me. Of course, I can't do it.
So, I mean, for naming a scene out of all the episodes, it's pretty tough. And I'm not gonna name Tiny Rick just because it's so.
Well, again, Tiny Rick and Get Swifty are 2 that we will leave off the table just because they're so popular.
Yeah, it's just I mean, if I had to pick a favorite moment, I think it's just the different scenes they show on the interdimensional TV with when he says, "Oh yeah, Uncle Rick, Grandpa Rick, I'm sorry, Grandpa Rick, show us what your favorite TV show is." Okay, he walks up and takes the receiver and drops it on the floor and shatters it, and everybody screams. And he puts this little diamond out of his pocket and into the box, puts it back together, and he's flipping channels and going through different dimensions, looking at different parallel universes of their lives, and it's hilarious.
The Lucky Charms one too, like the Lucky Charms. That was probably
the
my
eye
favorite.
holes? Is that eye holes that you're talking about? Yeah.
Well, no. He's talking about the Strawberry Schmiggles.
The strawberry. Oh my god, I can't remember. Can't believe I forgot.
The eye holes, that was good too.
Yeah.
Especially the scene after the credits when Jerry's getting the eye holes out of the cupboard.
Told you not to get these.
So before you answer it, my other favorite is when in Rick Potion number. Was it Rick
Potion number 9?
Yeah, Rick Potion number 9. When they're at the dance,
and it gives he just sprays the what was it, potion on her.
Well,
Love potion.
well, he does, but the part that I love is when everyone gets infected and the band starts singing the song, I love Morty, and I hope Morty loves me. And I want to wrap my big
Everything
arms
about
around
the
him
show.
and feel him inside me. Anyway.
Everything about the show makes me cry.
Well-
Anyway, Sarasi, what's yours?
My favorite is Mr. Meese's.
Oh my god. Mr. Macy's! Hi, Mr. Macy's!
I just want to die. Mr. Meese's just want to die. They have to try to get 2 strokes off of like
Jerry's gone.
Jerry's golf game. It goes down the awful spiral. You gotta make simple requests.
I just want to die!
Man, we've been at this for hours. I can't imagine what you guys have, what your musics have been up to. Jerry, our musics have been gone for hours.
Oh man.
No-
Okay, so
No matter how much that character where it's the only creation is he wants to die. I find that it's somewhat weirdly funny.
Jerry, musics aren't supposed to be around for this long. Things are getting weird.
So, to change the subject a little bit, I have something I want to go off on a spin-off for. When DJ Vinny said that his roommate kind of introduced Rick and Morty to him, it kind of reminded me when growing up, for my musical interests. I've always been a metalhead, but I also grew up to listening to old Elvis and bands like Sister Hazel and Old Country.
You know, that's good news that everybody now knows, at least from an official standpoint, that you're a metalhead, because although I do not dislike metal, people seem to think that, I guess because of my build and just overall look, that I'm just like a hardcore metal dude, and that's just not the case.
I mean, that's the thing, though. I mean, you could kind of stereotype people, especially like earlier in the 2000s, because everyone tried to fit like a look. I mean, I've listened to heavy metal my entire life, and I love it. It was a channel for me.
Guys,
it was something that helped me get through a lot of emotional.
He loves it.
Yeah, I study it. I love metal concerts. I just went to see the Faceless the other week, and in Greensboro, North Carolina, and they killed it on stage. It was an incredible show.
So not that I'm asking you to, but are you able to do some of the on stage screaming like?
I'm still practicing. It takes a lot of no. That's like a pig. No,
I can't do it.
I don't even know.
I couldn't remotely even try.
It's difficult. Some people can, some people can't. Some people have to work at it. Some people don't. You just get it the first time. There's a lot of different techniques to doing it correctly, and I'm still working it out. But I don't even want to try in front of anybody unless it's in the car with very loud music. But what I was trying to get back to earlier was my brother was a big influence on the music that I listen to now. So he'll bring up a band and he'll say, "Oh, Periphery is an awesome band," and then I'll listen to it and I'll start really digging into all the music. And by the time I'm really starting to love this band, he'll be like, "Oh, I'm just kind of burnt out on them already. Here's a new band." So I mean, it's a consistently growing market out there for heavy metal. It's not like any of the stuff that you hear on the radio anymore.
Sure. I just love it because, especially on Twitter, you wouldn't believe how many people from the metal community, I guess, like I said, just assume that I'm a diehard metal fan. And, they'll be shocked fairly quickly that that's not the case.
Well, you can't really stereotype people anymore.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. You can't. People still do, though. Not that, I'm going to come down on you for it. It's just, it's just interesting to watch.
With a freaking Pez dispenser on it. I mean, that doesn't really scream heavy metal.
No, it screams other things, but that's okay. That is okay.
I'm just going to go back to drinking my soda over here.
That's okay.
But I do agree with you that a lot of times siblings have a huge impact on like musical choices as well.
Absolutely.
For like my sister's what introduced me to ska. She had a ska band during high school that she played with.
I remember seeing them play on stage. It was awesome. That was a lot of fun listening.
Right, and growing up, like my sister being a musician, that kind of helped mold a lot of that from my end. And getting into things like Real Big Fish and getting into like
Goldfinger.
So who remembers the most popular ska-based 90s cartoon television theme?
Oh, shit.
Do you know what I'm talking
about? Johnny Quest?
No.
Johnny Quest.
I was like, Johnny Quest, kind of good.
It was not 90s, was it? Johnny Quest? Was that 90s?
No.
Well, that's not what I'm thinking of.
Because I'm trying to figure out, Real Big Fish did a bunch of like popular themes.
They did.
You're the Monkey Man.
Again, I mean, not that it's not a cartoon, but we're talking specifically 90s cartoons.
Okay.
That would feature
Ska?
The funny thing is that when I play this song, and you've heard it actually, when I play this song, people automatically think of this cartoon, not the actual band.
Johnny Bravo?
Who
No,
made it.
you're talking about Kablam, aren't you?
I am talking about Kablam.
Kablam.
Kablam!
Two Tones Army.
Nickelodeon? No, Cartoon Network. This is
No,
that, right?
Nickelodeon. No, I said it's a cartoon. Not that it's on Cartoon Network.
Okay.
Not the two people who have ska background. No idea.
That's okay. But yeah, that's the funny thing is that people, especially when it comes to popular culture, TV shows, cartoons, movies, what have you, it's hilarious, especially since I've been in the industry for so long, when, a song will come on and people will automatically start saying, oh, this is, that track from that movie, and they don't even recognize who the artist and or the track name is.
Yeah.
And I'll have to tell them, they'll be like, no, it's not, so-and-so. And I'm like, uh-huh.
Yeah, like I'm into popular animes and trying to catch up on that because I'm way behind the curve on watching anime. But I recently went to Animazement last year and saw a band called Rookies as Punked and didn't even make the connection that they wrote the beginning intro to the show Blue Exorcist. They killed it on stage. Though the crowd at Animazement was kind of young, didn't really know how to react, didn't know really how to express themselves in a crowd for a hard punk concert. They were all singing in Japanese. It was kind of odd. It was the first time for me hearing a Japanese rock band, but it was fun.
And they were singing "In My World," I think was the one that you're referring to. But they've have plenty of songs that are, whether it's been for Bleach and other iterations. I know one of the famous ones that I always talk to someone is if you're trying to explain to someone ska for the first time, you ask them, "Have you seen the show Malcolm in the Middle?"
Yes.
All you have to do, that beginning theme song, the "You're Not the Boss of Me Now" song.
Yeah.
Now that's ska in a nutshell. That's like
light rock music with.
I think that's the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, the ones who wrote that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm gonna make sure on that. Yeah, or no, it's They Might Be Giants is the one who wrote Boss of Me.
And if anybody wants to get into a modern ska band that's out right now, there's a Japanese all-female ska band out called Mori Ska Band, and that's the name of their band, right?
Aura? O-R-E?
Aura Ska?
Yeah,
Aura
ska band?
Yeah, they are incredible musicians.
Tsunanaki is one of my favorite songs of all time, and it is insane. But
I need to catch up on a lot of stuff. I've only heard a few of their songs, but the few songs that I have heard, they are absolutely incredible musicians.
And I think another thing kind of with them that's interesting is how over the years we've gotten to a lot more focus of an international music crowd than having general, like baby metal coming out of nowhere and getting huge in America.
Oh my god, people look at me weird when I listen to them flat through my headphones. I'm like, what the heck is that guy listening to?
What the heck is that guy listening to anyway? Damn it.
Musical infusion of culture is happening right now as well. As soon as, when we're talking about how television is changing for the better, it's changing in this crazy whimsical writing, the music industry itself is getting very influenced by, like we mentioned, the TV shows, anime. There's getting a lot more Japanese-influenced music coming out more and more. I mean, you even see Avril Lavigne when she did Hello Kitty in Japan. It was
Hello Kitty.
Oh my goodness.
A very Japanese-inspired video to try to appease crowds.
I don't even know why, but Hello Kitty just kind of annoys me. It's just one of those things, I don't know why. It just annoys me to see Hello Kitty. Like, you see that famous picture online with the car that's completely decked out in Hello Kitty crap. Like a fuzzy steering wheel and the stick shift has a little Hello Kitty head on it. And it's just it's too much.
It's just
too much.
Crazy, folks.
And it's also nowadays it's gotten to how media and cartoons are so engraved in our society that you could go up to someone and say that I want to be the very best, like no one ever was.
And everyone knows what you're talking about.
Every single person, even Vinny, would know what we're talking about.
And if they didn't, they'd be like, what is that, Digimon?
Yeah, with no previous experience of what that would be.
Well,
like 1998.
Well, despite your comment there, I would absolutely recognize it just because of the fact I've been in broadcasting and the video game industry for such a long time. So if I didn't know, then there would probably be a lynching of some kind. involved. So
I mean, either grew up on a farm and didn't have TV until you were 19, or I mean, I don't even know if somebody quoted that to you and you were surrounded by modern society and you didn't know what that was, that people would just look at you weird. They didn't even have to like Pokemon.
MCP? MC Pokemon? Huh?
MC Pokemon over there?
MC Pokemon? Huh? Say what?
Top 3 Pokemon, go right now.
Squirtle. No, that is Wartortle.
Speaking of squirrels, I love the episode of Robot Chicken when they cut the squirrel going, squirtle, and Pikachu's like, say it, Earl, or we'll get the gas. He's like, fuck this, everybody, go read a book.
Yeah, Pikachu, I choose you, go!
It's like, but aren't you gonna tell me? Yeah, just do whatever you want, man. No, I don't even need permission for this. Solar beam. I'm in Venusaur.
Do you remember that clip from Robot Chicken?
Yes, but we were referring to
awesome.
no.
We were talking
Oh,
about.
no, I know what you're referring to, but I was making sure you...
That's probably one of my favorite videos on the internet is Poke Awesome.
And that's another like weird topic for us to look into and a bit is just our line between interactive media is very blurred on that. And in that sense for you is that we just went from just using Pokemon, we just connected YouTube to just the traditional television media to a parody medium, all with just saying I want to be the very best like no one ever was.
And while we're on the subject of Pokemon, you guys may remember that, I guess it was probably maybe a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months, where there was a news article about the franchise that owns the rights to Pokemon, how they were suing, I believe, a little...
Oh no!
This is news to me.
You're not talking about the old Game Freak messing with PAX Prime, are you?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
No, this is all news to me. I haven't heard this yet.
They so this little place was going to have a little. I think it was a pre-party.
Yeah, it was a Pokemon after party that was going on.
After or pre? I thought it was a pre.
It was either. It was a party, a Pokemon themed party that was all fan run during the PAX Prime in Seattle during the events, and that's around August time.
Yeah.
During it, Nintendo, more particularly creators for Pokemon, shut it down immediately and had like a big lawsuit going behind it.
But that's the thing. They not only sent a cease and desist, but also actually sent a summons for lawsuit.
And
for what? On what premise?
That they were utilizing their name and quote unquote damaging the company, and were seeking $4,000 in damages.
And
of course, the community literally just said, "WTF." What is wrong with these guys? They didn't, sure they were using, the name and the likeness, but they were, from my perspective, I would be all fine with you utilizing.
Yeah, whatever, you would put my name out for you're having a
if
freaking party with my name. Go for it.
If I was in, like, Nintendo or Game Freak's, like, PR department, or particularly the Nintendo department that may have been processing that, that's one free publicity, and it's a positive fashion. You're getting a bunch of people to gather together to celebrate Pokemon.
That good name.
Especially when you have these other products coming around like Pokégo and all of these other things that they're having to extend the brand to make it more common household.
I mean, hell, you're trying to get hype behind the name at this point because you're bringing up Pokemon Go that everyone was already excited about, and then you go down and bash people just for having a party? I don't think that's cool.
And the thing is that, brought this to everyone's attention to say, this is crap. This is what's going on, and the community raised the $4,000 in a matter of hours.
Immediately. I
didn't hear about it because they didn't leave space in between trying to say no, we're not going to give you that money.
It made major headlines. It wasn't something that was shoved aside. I mean, if you read,
was it on Fox News or something?
The Pokemon
probably,
community,
but any major news source, especially online, you were going to find it.
Yeah.
The Pokemon community's been going through some weird stuff recently. Like, even with the Pokemon World Finals, there was that, an armed conflict that happened right before the Pokemon Finals, because there's attempted,
Oh, yeah, I remember that, too.
The attempted armed conflict where someone was trying to go into the center and cause some problems with there and bringing a weapon into the convention center for the Pokemon Finals. It's weird why Pokemon right now, more than any time in the world, they need to really reel back in their audience and be in a very supportive role, because the world's not really pushing very, very nice things against them right now.
And I mean, you have to remember, there are so many other franchises out there that can literally just say, fine, we don't want to have anything to do with the Pokemon franchise. We'll just go with something else. You can go and take,
There's so much other content out there that it's not really a do or die matter for anything anymore.
Right, absolutely.
It's like, okay, cool, you're being a dick. We'll just go with somebody else.
And definitely 10 years ago, this would not even remotely be an issue because they wouldn't have been able to see the light of day as quickly as it was, spread as quickly, and also get resolved as quickly as it was.
Sure, definitely.
Yeah, it's a very interesting world of...
It's an instant world out there now. Instead of just something taking 2 or 3 days just to hit the news, it's immediate.
Yeah, and I mean, when I read that immediately pissed me off, even though it had nothing to do with me, and of course, nothing to do with the franchise that I would typically follow on a regular basis.
I don't know, that's just somebody being a dick.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody really likes that. Especially if they want you to pay up $4,000. Maybe they were hurting for something.
I don't know. I know that...
They know they had the money to do whatever, but all they need to... I don't get it. I don't know. I don't really know a whole lot about Game Freak besides the fact that they have had their name on Pokemon for the past, 20 years. But, yeah, I like Pokemon. Pokemon's cool. I've played every generation since it came out, except for Black and White. Those I could live without. I didn't really play those.
Playing in the Pokemon competitive scene myself, I've seen a transformation of...
Oh my god,
people.
we got stomped at Mag Classic.
And that's what happens. Note to self, when you go into a tournament, don't use rentals from MCP's rental box.
Alright, you can screw off. Because those, I've been hoarding Pokemon since Ruby version. You can eat it.
I mean, they weren't EV trained for anyone that has any Pokemon knowledge in the background, but it was all right. They held their own.
EV training is for chumps, not technically game chumps.
Yeah, I mean,
game chumps can do whatever the heck they want.
I still think your version,
and we do.
I still think your version of EV training might physically be grinding up EVs that you catch in the wild and then force feeding it to your Pokemon is your way of training them, based on the stat yields I see on these guys.
No, I treat every one of my Pokemon with love. And I store them I catch them, train them to whatever I want, save them for later in a box, and they can eat grass in a field for years until I need them. That's all. They're just chilling in the Pokemon Center. Like at Professor Oak's lab, just chilling on his farm with all those Tauros that Ash has from the first season.
And you got some mine that go into harsh war every week, multiple battles at a time, back to back. When you put it like that, who's the villain here?
I mean, I feel like I treat my Pokemon well. Everyone else is like, oh, I'm just going to grind them into the dirt. They hate, their Pokemon freaking hate them. Hate their trainers. Mine love me. There's no way.
And Vinny, the Pokemon Master over here.
Yeah, the Pokemon Master, which is, as our good friend Temwood would put it, a little bit of a joke, and that's okay.
So do you mean Pokemon Master as in you played Red, Blue, and Yellow version and all used Earthquake on everybody you met for the entire game? I'm going to Earthquake all these motherfuckers.
No, but that being said, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll get into more stuff. So don't you go away. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the VinnyMac's 9 Radio Show podcast, the most radioactive show on the planet, the show that cares so much about you that we simulcast on multiple platforms to ensure that we bring the program to you. So we left off talking about Pokemon and things of that nature.
We're going to be actually talking about, we were having a quick discussion about some cool things that we saw over the year. We talked about mainly TV shows. In terms of movies, were there any movies that stood out this year as like kind of landmark movies?
Oh, was it? It wasn't Avengers 2 that came out.
Age of Ultron came out this year, I believe.
Age of Ultron that came out last year.
Don't look at me.
I don't remember.
In terms of movies that came out this year, there's not a whole lot. I know like Star Wars.
It was just preparation for like later this year. That Star Wars is coming out on the 18th.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's not a whole lot of hype behind. Oh, there was the second part of the Hunger Games.
Hunger Games, yeah. We got to see some kids kill some kids.
Oh yeah, well not really that. It's more like adults killing adults now.
Yeah, I mean,
they're done making kids by now.
Wasn't it like it's the equivalent of Survivor All Stars at this point, where they just took all the winners from the previous seasons, they threw them in a pit and told them to go at it, right?
Yeah. I'm not really sure.
The reason why we're struggling, that should say a lot about the movies that came out this year. There wasn't a lot that was just showstoppers. Even Age of Ultron wasn't really a showstopper, I would say, this year.
No, not nearly as much as people anticipate for like Deadpool coming out next year, and
I mean,
Superman versus Batman. Everyone's freaking out about that. Star Wars has an intense amount of hype behind it.
Yeah,
most IMAX theaters are sold out already.
I think Star Wars, again, this whole year's been kind of leading up for Star Wars.
Oh, absolutely.
And it comes down to the point that how well Star Wars does in the next couple of weeks, how that goes overall, we'll just statement of, basically, we're writing you a blank check for the whole entire movie industry for this month. So let's see what you can do with it.
I mean, they have so much hype behind it. I mean, it would honestly be a shame if it was a flop.
You can get Star Wars lipstick right now.
Oh my god! Yeah, you can get like designer. What is it? Who's it sold by like Victoria's Secret or something like now?
Yeah.
Like you can get it in most shopping malls as like an Star Wars eyeliner. I recently got Star Wars ornaments that came out. They were brand new.
What is the craziest Star Wars related item you've ever seen?
You already know, Matt, that
I mean, I can already
that's
imagine,
not really the question that you would ever ask me.
Probably
I can
like
imagine like a lightsaber dildo.
Star Wars soap I've seen.
Soap?
You can scrub with like Han Solo and soaped carbonite.
I have seen that. I recently saw a car, like a external battery for your phone, but it was a Death Star. So you could put it in your cup holder of your car. This is a picture. It had a little Death Star sitting in the cup holder with a USB port, so you can plug your phone up into the Death Star and it charges your phone for you.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. That was a great one. But no! The greatest thing I think I've seen this year, not really regarding movies, but more specifically a sales pitch. The Squatty Potty. That is the greatest sales pitch I've ever seen. Besides the Dollar Beard Club, that was a pretty good one too.
Question: does it make you want to purchase said product?
Oh my god, absolutely! That's gonna be my Christmas gag gift this year. Is a Squatty Potty. It's $20 on Amazon. Shut up and take my money.
Oh my gosh! A lot of these movies that I didn't expect actually came out this year did come out this year, and they're just that forgettable. We had a Rocky Balboa movie that came out, Creed.
Oh, right. That's right.
I mean, we had Sean...
That was recent, too.
Yeah. We had another Fast and the Furious movie that came out, Jupiter Ascending, which was a huge
that
flop.
was this year?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
We had a Peanuts movie, Hunger Games, we had Tomorrowland, which was, again, we had Ex Machina, which that one actually looked pretty Good. In terms for movies, I saw Terminator Genesis.
Genesis?
Yikes!
Ouch!
It doesn't matter. The movie was extremely terrible.
The movie bombed at the box office with that title.
Genesis?
They spelled Genesis with a Y, and the only reason why is so you can question the whole movie and say, why?
Why would you make this? Why don't you just leave it at the last one?
It was not a good movie.
Didn't they destroy the, God, what was the corporation? Skynet? Didn't they destroy Skynet in the last movie?
It was something like that.
Was that before Genesis?
Oh, no, that was a weird one because that's a Terminator prequel sequel thing. That doesn't count. It's not part of... They basically tried to reboot all of Terminator, and it did not go well.
But it was. I mean, it was.
It was an
interesting.
alternate
It was cool.
timeline reboot of Terminator.
After D-Day, it was already after the apocalypse, and
Needless to say, you don't
That was
have to
Christian Bale,
worry
wasn't
about
it?
it anymore. No, not the one that came out right now. No,
no,
Yeah, but
not that one, but the one before.
Yeah, it was a Christian Bale. That one was pretty good. That was
I liked
decent.
that one. I Annihilate. What was it called? Terminator
Salvation.
I liked that one.
That was pretty good. Mad Max came out this year.
Yeah, that was cool.
Mad Max was just like every metalhead or every like desert goer kind of person, like
I
that
thought it was a really
Fallout player.
steampunkish kind of movie.
Yeah, everyone who loves like Fallout steampunk. That was just literally 130 minutes of nothing but just carnage and CGI, and maybe like 40 minutes of plot, if that.
Not to mention, she was so hot with a robot arm.
And then we had Jurassic World, where it was a movie that was.
Oh my god! How could I forget? I brought my older brother to that movie for his birthday because when he was little, he was born in 1988, and when he was little, Jurassic Park came out in theaters. My mom asked him, "Hey, like, why he wanted to go see Jurassic Park?" He said, "Mom, don't worry, I'm not gonna be scared. I saw Ghostbusters," and that's like his famous line from when he was little. But I brought him and his fiance to see Jurassic World for in theaters, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
It definitely brought back a lot of nostalgia.
and the last like 10 minutes is the best in the movie. You would pay the ticket just to watch the last fight scene in the whole movie.
And for anyone
over
who
and over.
hasn't seen it, I'm totally gonna ruin it for you with like just
So spoilers.
Spoilers. If you want to get past this, go beep. All right.
This is where we lose 100% of the audience.
No one has seen it because of all the reviews. No, I'm just joking. I'm kidding. Like the Velociraptor and a T-Rex versus the Omnisaurus. What the heck did they call it?
It doesn't matter.
Something crazy hybrid dinosaur with T-Rex and Velociraptor put together.
Right.
It was just a bunch of DNA scrambled together and put in some deadly animal with claws and teeth and could speak to different dinosaurs and command them because it was part freaking raptor.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
It was awesome. And then we also had some movies that were just like the worst of the worst. And the classic one for that I would like to talk about before we shift on to something outside of movies, Pixels. And
Oh my god, I still haven't seen that. I'm going to see it. I don't care what you say.
Pixels is so bad it's bad. Like
It has some great great actors in it though.
yeah, but it
Maybe it was supposed to, it's an Adam Sandler movie. Of course it's going to be somewhat bad.
but
It's no.
This
You
is
can't-
where
Rob
the-
Schneider
you can't-
is a carrot.
I-
Rated PG-13.
Exactly.
If you guys get that reference.
I keep Pixels at the same level I keep Thanksgiving in my library for movies to watch every year.
Really?
It's one of those
You
movies,
can't relate anything to Thanksgiving or Rubber or Hobo with a shotgun.
but it is.
The Pixel's not a one-liner though.
It
Those
is.
movies are all like, I mean, to be
It's-
honest, Sharknado, those three movies, like Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus, those movies I put in a completely different category. I wouldn't put Pixels in there. Maybe just bad. Just a bad movie.
And
That's
it's
great.
I did have that in terms for the rest of the Rossi Cine Club, one of the seasons that we've been playing through and watching old movies. I've immediately had to make an exception as soon as I saw that movie, where I have to bring that almost to the front of the line because of how much you have to talk about it and you have to go in detail about
All
it.
right, well, I need to watch it
Yeah,
before the next one. Before the
Absolutely
next podcast.
ridiculous. The other one for it in terms for TV shows, I wanted to talk quickly about, I know briefly skated across it, Heroes Reborn, but after doing some thinking about that, Heroes is this very interesting case, and this wraps up kind of where we were looking at before about how good writing and bad writing has shaped television and created and destroyed programs. Heroes was the victim on their second season of the writer's strike, where they had a fantastic first season. It was absolutely one of the best seasons of written television I've personally seen in a while.
It was a sweet concept.
Yeah,
It was really freaking cool.
the save the cheerleader, save the world. And now, just like with the Jurassic Park, I'm going to do some spoiling for season 1 of Heroes Reborn. First season of, and it's the reason why I'm questioning the writing here. Heroes season 1. Whole premise. Save the cheerleader, save the world. There's a serial killer, blah, blah, blah. They're going to try to save from a giant apocalypse, right?
Yeah.
Season 1 of Reborn takes place after all of Heroes. The first character to die is Claire. She dies in the first scene.
But she's
She's the invincible cheerleader.
Yeah,
They kill
like
her off.
immortal.
Yep. So instead of save the cheerleader, save the world, they immediately kill the cheerleader off. And they have all these characters come in and out from the past that they keep bringing up. That were once good guys are now bad guys, all the stuff from it. But where it goes as a flimsy plot is that the whole premise of this season is that there's a giant helix, meaning like a supernova from the sun, about to hit Earth. And their grand scheme is using time travel powers to teleport people after the event to start a civilization after the giant supernova happens. And that's the whole premise of the series going forward. Now, in terms of like checking yourself on writing, this is the same year that Rick and Morty came out. This is the same year that One Punch Man is coming out. This is the same year that like sci-fi television, even Doctor Who, is coming out, and it's doing a little bit better in terms of its writing staff. How are you going to pitch to me that taking Heroes, trying to revive it back, and coming up with a plot where you A, are killing off your main characters, and B, your plot doesn't even like remotely have a tangent story arc?
It doesn't feel grounded, at least.
It doesn't, because it feels like the whole thing feels defeated to begin with. Like there's no motivation for a character to succeed because I want to see them all die. All the characters are written so bad. There's 3 characters that I like, and it's Hiro Nakamura, of course, from original Heroes, and then the 2 other Asian characters they're introduced, Ren and the Katana Girl, which are these new characters from it. But when you come down to it, where it's the characters that don't speak English and you have to read subtitles is the only way you can tolerate a show, that's not an example of good writing. And that's kind of where the caution goes in, where we do have Rick and Morty, we do have all this good stuff, and I want to see television keep going from this, but we're in a year, even with our movies, they're so forgettable because they're reboots, they're rehashes.
Yeah.
And we're coming into like X-Files around the corner where they're rebooting X-Files. How many shows are we going to see that are just continuing rebooting, and what's that going to do to it?
Like, haven't we... I feel like there's this reoccurring saying is like, nothing's as good as the original, except for the 3rd Austin Powers movie. I was incredibly impressed with it. I will watch that forever.
Yes.
It's sincerely just as good as the first one. Second one's a little bit crude, but that's off topic. I mean, there's continuous evidence saying that it's a bad idea to reboot. It is a bad idea. Unless it's maybe like Hellsing Unlimited from the anime.
Or we were talking about Samurai Jack.
Yeah, I mean
That's finishing a story.
That's finishing, not rebooting.
Mm-hmm.
It's continuing. It's not something that somebody had just failed at and then decided to make it good again, or attempt to try to make it good again. So that's different.
Right. And I feel like that's with like Walking Dead. No pun intended. The show itself's on a Walking Dead. It's
the show is awesome. Don't even go there. The 6th season is nonetheless compelling. It's great.
And it'll be where we kind of disagree from it, because I've from a lot of analyzing it, the problem with The Walking Dead is that it has a very great it has a great selective episodes of each season, but they never do a good job of pacing. It always seems off. It's either too fast or too slow in terms of introducing, killing a character. And in this season in particular, it goes in microbursts. Like, you'll have a character that they'll introduce, kill off immediately, or they'll go way too slow to the point that you're not interested. You're interested in what happens in the moment, but in the grand scheme of things, you're not feeling satisfied.
Yeah, I was kind of... every show has its filler episodes, just to buy time, because they need to be able to space it out correctly. But I do have to agree with you. The 6th season, their filler episodes, just... It has useful information for the story. It does follow along the plot line, but it's just... I don't know. It's just something about it that doesn't want... It's like, really? That's all. It didn't leave me with a, alright, what's happening next? And made me feel like that was a waste of my time. But
the biggest problem is this expansionary material. That's content that they expanded from a universe... from the comic books and video games that they could easily integrate through their marketing system to make up for that and spend the time more of progressing the plot than filling it in just so they can, in the Rick and Morty terms, so they can extend the episode so they can reach a criteria.
Yeah, I mean, to change the subject just a smidge, I'm really bothered by the ideas that people have to make live action movies out of cartoons that should stay cartoons.
The Attack on Titan movie?
Yes. The Last Airbender.
Yeah. Dragon Ball Evolution.
Literally, oh my god, don't even. No, like the Last Airbender. If you hadn't watched the show, you would have no idea what the fuck is going on. You just say, all right, the CGI is incredible, and I probably shouldn't have used that F word, but
it's all good, my
for
friend.
growing up and watching this show for season after season. Like, oh my gosh, this show is great. And then when to see like the live action movie that came out, the CGI, the special effects were awesome. I was impressed, but the same fact they skipped over so much information,
and
they couldn't even make it a part 2, part 3, part 4.
And he put M. Night Shyamalan in charge.
Oh
and this could have been M. Night Shyamalan's one chance to redeem himself. Classic one. All he literally had to do is just take a script from a TV show and copy and paste it onto a Word document and continue going.
You could have made it word for word from the show to the movie to live action, and no one would have cared.
He would have immediately redeemed himself for 90% of his film career that's been seen as just not...
Maybe different views on the camera. You don't have to make it like live action to the dot, but at the same time, the scripting could have been the exact same. You could have even thrown in the cabbage guy.
Yeah.
Oh no, that was the second book, wasn't it? That was book 2. That was book 2. The cabbage guy was in every book, wasn't he?
And
anyways,
and whole Legend of Korra and Last Airbender, all of that stuff definitely will be a whole separate thing that will be
That's
addressed.
a whole other podcast.
That's a whole nother issue.
It'll probably be a podcast on its own.
Yeah, maybe not even here on this format, but whether it's handled on my channel or handled on something you're doing, we'll address that when it comes in, because there's a lot that you can digest in that. In terms for video games this year, we did have a couple not so good hits. We had like Battlefront, that was all right.
Okay, that's debatable.
It was pretty decent. Like, it was right there.
The gameplay is incredible. The story content is vacant.
Yeah.
It's absent.
And but we also had, again, in the indie category, we had Undertale around a couple months, and Undertale's insanely like huge at this point. It's exploded.
I need to play that because I haven't even heard of it before now.
And Vinny,
you know, if the community actually cares enough, they'll lynch you for that one.
Okay.
And Vinny, I guess you.
I'm new to
talk
this.
about
That's
Undertale.
okay. I forgive you. It's all
my
right.
first podcast. Give me a break.
Your first podcast does not equal entry into gaming necessarily.
Yeah.
But I forgive you this once. Anyhow.
And that's kind of what I want to talk with you about too. Is like Undertale is this example of like Shovel Knight. They're two completely independent shows that have both exploded overnight in both the video game music industry and what we're looking at going forward into like even MagFest, like all the new performances. That amount of change that's happening where like Undertale is going to be more than likely the kind of remixes we see going forward. What is your thoughts on like how that's shaping up rather than we have like the Legend of Zelda kind of music themes or scores coming out?
Which will always be great, but...
Very interesting question. I think the thing with Undertale that people are just finding really fascinating about is that there's this emotional tie with the game. And the fact that you also have music that's designed for the game to also take on that in addition. And I think people really like that feeling.
Right.
And so, as a result, we're seeing this instant success, so it seems, on a relatively indie game. Game that I really didn't hear of until... I mean, it's been a little while, but I mean, I'd say that I came in fairly late in the game because, you know, I'm busy, so, you know, that's not that surprising. But bottom line is that it's just something that a lot of people have a lot of direct emotional ties to.
Right.
Just in the gameplay and its music, that people find very specific tracks in the game that they want to remix and they want to do, you know, very specific things with it. As far as things that they would want to change.
Yeah.
to build on that emotional tie. And so, I mean, I've heard some very interesting takes on some of those tracks, and you can find them in various places: YouTube, SoundCloud, and of course a variety of different popular remixers, Twitter accounts, and what have you. Not sure if I addressed the question properly, but
but that's the kind of insight for I was kind of interested with. For those of you who don't know what Undertale is, think more of like Super Mario RPG or Earthbound, a very old
Legend of the
throwback,
Seven Stars.
like a very old throwback to that old Chrono Trigger-esque feel of format where you get party members, you have way to your options, you're going off for a thing, but you actually are very strong in your options. If you want to go on a route where you go and kill every party member, they're not going to stop you. It's going to change the game a lot. It's going to also change how the feeling of the game, the music changes. And there's something kind of powerful for that as well. So the fact that Undertale feels like it might end up being a Game of the Year contender, which is going to be weird because it's one of 2 years I've seen that actually happen where an indie game throws into the Game of the Year in very recent time. The other one being a Shovel Knight.
Is that a console or a CPU game?
It's a PC game, and I think it's being ported.
I'm sorry, PC.
I would have to.
I went full noob there.
Right. I would have to be
Full
safe
noob.
to assume that it's going to be ported to every console with the success it's having right now at this point. The other games that we're kind of looking at this year, I know Fallout with the continuation as well.
I can't sit down and play it for less than 7 hours. That game is incredible.
So for Fallout, how, in your opinion, is it different from, let's say, Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas?
One, complete customization control. So you can customize your weapons, you can customize your companions, and anyway, like they brought back dog meat for anyone who hasn't played Fallout 4 or anyone who hasn't seen any hilarious videos of your companions screwing things up for you on Facebook. People just mainly the page Vault Dude. I'll throw him a shout out. He throws a lot of really, really funny videos that people make on his page. But the main differences between Fallout 4 and New Vegas and Fallout 3 is one, the power armor. The power armor is incredible. It's more like a vehicle now. You hop in one, you can completely customize it, and it's different in a way that you get to take it on and off and still wear a suit, like an outfit underneath. So you can still have your vault suit and then throw leather armor on top of that, and you can change the color of it to help you sneak better. You can throw in a leaded armor. You can completely customize almost everything that you have, and you can create home bases too. So you can, for the little village that you start out, the little neighborhood you start out in. You can create walls, you can make buildings, you can make defenses, you can create water purifiers, you can completely customize this area around you for people to come to live with you, and this little community that you build. You can build farms, you can get cows to go in between different bases that you have across the map, and you can actually pick up different items like copper and screws and like the lead out of a pencil just to be able to customize different things that you have. And it's like Minecraft for me.
Now, do you think it's very important for a game to be dynamic in terms of the things that you can do in it?
To have a sandbox effect, absolutely.
Not like sandbox, but having, different choices that you make affect the gameplay.
Absolutely. One of the best examples I have of that is probably Mass Effect, my favorite trilogy ever. For the dialogue
of the world.
Yeah, for the dialogue choices that you have in the game will determine what races of aliens get to live or die, and that affects the gameplay dramatically. You can end up killing off your companions if you wanted to. You can end up doing all kinds of stuff that will dramatically change the game. For Mass Effect 3, there were about 9 different endings to the game. It was pretty impressive. It was the amount of effort that went into the game was incredible.
And honestly, I think that particular dynamic, having choices affect the ultimate end of your gameplay, is very important to the success of a game, which is why I think games like Undertale and games like one of my favorites, Cave Story, is why they become successful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think Undertale and Cave Story are not only successful because of that, but also because they have awesome tracks that are featured.
You give the player control of what they're doing instead
Exactly.
of just throwing them on a roller coaster ride.
And I think for the major contenders this year, it really came down to control for the player. Whether it's been Witcher or it's Undertale or we're talking about Fallout. Anytime that there's been a thing that shows out, a lot of the complaints and the successes of games have been how much control and weight are to the player's actions. Mm-hmm. I know Connor Tenwug had a whole thing about talking about the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic expansion and how there was very little weight to how that played out. And like himself, a lot of people felt victim to that. And that this year, us as a society is growing to where we want to have more weight in our actions. We don't really want a handheld narrative as much, where we're guided completely from start A to start B, and there's very little choice in between.
Well, I think there are a few exceptions to that, like the Lara Croft series that they rebooted, Tomb Raider. I've played the demo for the newest game that came out, the little free release that Xbox had. I played through that, and I thought it was pretty cool. There were obviously some side missions that you could go on, but the main storyline was pretty linear, and I thought it was fun.
And don't get me wrong, I don't think there's anything wrong with that type of gameplay.
Or like Halo, the series, it's a linear path, but
and Halo's a very interesting one. The other one that I would play more off of the Lara Croft side would probably be the other contender I would probably see people pushing for is going to be Metal Gear Solid 5, obviously.
Yes.
With that game being a very linear game in terms for its
comedy
playthrough.
that comes with it, though.
But and its delivery of both the stealth elements and also just the amount of ridiculousness where you can control the control for the players. They either can go 100% stealthy, complete the game with killing very few people, or they could be in a very genocide happy nature and still have that illusion of choice to the point that you can strap a goat to a giant umbrella thing and just fly it up to the air and just see what happens. It's ridiculous. Just Cause 3 that just came out for that is very similar.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. I personally haven't played the Just Cause video games, but I want to play them now.
I've played through... At this point, I've played through all 3. Just Cause 2, I didn't finish the storyline because I had too much fun just wandering around. Just Cause 3, I feel like I'm going to be victim to that as well. 90% of the fun of the game is using your grappling hook device and just finding ridiculous things. Like you can strap a car to a helicopter and strap the helicopter to a boat and then have the helicopter pick up all 3 and you can use it as a slingshot and go and sling things at people. Or you can wrap 2 people together and then all of a sudden they go slamming into each other. It's not what it should be meant to be by any means, but is it something that's fun? Absolutely. It's a novelty game. And there's been quite a few novelty games, but I guess the big question for this year, I'm sure if I had to put my money on it, it's probably Metal Gear that would be taking the title this year. If not, Witcher might sneak away with it, but I'm more pushing towards Metal Gear on this fact.
Yeah.
I've had a good balance and pushing through for everything. I don't know where your head's at, where kind of overall.
I don't really have an opinion on that, honestly. I don't know what to I don't know what to add.
Yeah, like in terms for overall, if we were to ask every single person here in the audience what game was really the most impactful this year?
I feel like the most hype behind any game this year was Fallout 4. That had an incredible amount of hype behind the game, and it delivered.
Okay.
Maybe game of the year. I'm not sure. I think it was. I mean, if it was on the list of a game of the year, I would certainly vote for it. But
in our uninspected gem, of course, is the gem that Undertale. Yeah, Undertale is going to be the one that came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
that took us by a storm out of nowhere.
But yeah.
Yep.
Any other kind of video games that you saw this year that were very interesting that took you off guard?
Well, we already know Undertale.
Yeah.
You already mentioned several times. None that really surprised me, I'd say, aside from maybe Undertale. Because, at least from my perspective, I already had my expectations set as far as what to expect for all of these major titles that were expected to be released this year.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that, although it's not this year, this past year, one of the games that's come out over the last few years that I was really excited about, and you guys already know, was, of course, Sunset Overdrive.
Yeah, Sunset Overdrive was pretty surprising.
It came out late last year, so definitely not this year. But I guess it's kind of like Fallout 4, where it was late enough in the year to where you could probably count it as the following years. In terms of Game of the Year, as we were talking about with the Video Game Awards recently, Fallout 4 was not part of that primarily.
Yeah, I mean,
because
it didn't have enough time to.
I mean, it just came out not long ago, so
less than a month ago.
Yeah. So I mean, although to a lot of people it's been out forever because they've been playing it nonstop.
Yeah.
It hasn't been out that long.
And I know very recently when we were going through the podcast as well, the last one I wanted to bring up, we brought up how Pokemon had like a kind of mishap. Konami had a little bit of a mishap at the Video Game Awards. Speaking about it, I don't know if you were looking at some information on that as well, where Kojima, one of the main developers behind the Metal Gear franchise, with the PlayStation Expo, was not allowed to attend the expo. And we still don't have a whole lot of information on why, but when they were going through the awards behind it and all that show, he was distinctly told he wasn't supposed to be going to the expo for anything for that nature.
Now, wasn't the excuse that they were giving that he was on vacation?
I think so, and it seems like from what gathering at this point that something contractually happened for him, that even though he was fired from the project, and even like PT, which was also canceled later on, following that both of the things, he was dismissed from the project. He's just not allowed to be remotely associated with the company at this moment, which in terms for a PR move, if we're talking about Pokemon being bad, Konami's no-nos right now are going to be what sets the stage for some very interesting 2016 development.
Remember, folks, the people that are your customers in the video game industry are very quick to judgment.
Very snappy to heckle.
Whether or not that's a good or bad thing, that's not necessarily here for discussion, but just be aware, folks out there who have a lot of decision-making power in the video game industry, that you can fail pretty quickly if you make a bad move. So just be careful.
A dick bag.
Pretty much, if you want to take anything from the podcast for this month, is that,
be a nice guy.
Be a
or
nice
girl.
Guy. And
for whom out there is listening that is not the gender of male.
And any bit of retribution you're trying to seek by like being a jerk, it's not going to help you. It really isn't, because every time we've seen this come by, it's just been creating more and more situations where I don't see how this is going well for any of these companies. I am really excited to see what happens in the next calendar year, as these big companies seem to be sinking themselves, and by shooting themselves in the foot a lot, it leaves a lot of room for some new companies to take hold, and I want to see what happens.
Now, speaking of companies shooting themselves in the foot, what are your overall thoughts about digital content? And when I mean digital content, I don't mean actual like add-on content. I mean like games versus versus physical games, as far as like having a disc over just downloading a game.
I feel like it's, well,
I mean, if you have to
I
pay,
don't know. I mean, if let's say Xbox One has Halo 5 for download on your Xbox,
but there's no significant savings for getting the digital copy over the physical, it's still going to be $59.99. Would you still get the download as opposed to the physical?
Yeah, I'd say so. I feel like it would run quicker. Would it?
Yeah, but here's the thing. If you bought the physical, you'd still be able to install it to the hard drive. The bottom line is that you'd still have that physical copy, most specifically in the event that for some reason, and this is how I look
Your
at
data
it.
gets corrupt.
Well, no, in the event that the service goes offline and for some reason you can't download it, and it could be for a variety of reasons. They have a service disruption, or they just simply stop supporting that version of the console. Now your games are all locked, away in their service that you can't access. And now you're screwed as far as all the stuff that you purchased.
That is something I would have never thought of.
and that's the risk and reward of Steam. Like, Steam finds a way to drop down the price a little bit to compete with the consoles and the physical copies.
Yeah.
But the risk you're running is that if
you don't have
if
a
Big
copy of a
Daddy,
hard drive,
or more importantly, if Big Daddy Valve decides one day that they don't want Steam anymore, those 300, 400, or 400 games that you've had over the years all go away.
There was big legal issues that have been talked about lately as far as games that are no longer supported but cannot run because those back-end services are no longer available because the game manufacturer decided that they didn't want to continue running it. Well,
which I want to punch whoever made the decision to cut off me and my relationship to Midnight Club 3 from the original Xbox. That was an incredible racing game.
But the concern is you have this thing that you can't run unless it talks to, a server somewhere else. And the question is, well, how do you deal with that if you, legally purchased a copy? And of course, I believe, from what I understand, the ruling was that if a game has been truly left in the dark and the software vendor has decided they're no longer going to be able to support it, that it is legal for you to modify the game for your own personal purposes, not for the purposes of others, to play it on your own equipment for your own personal use. So, of course, don't take that beyond anything but that. That's all that means. It's for your own personal use.
And what that brings me into is on the side note, when digital came this whole mentality that we needed online gamings, that you had to be online all the time to play. I absolutely despise this. This is one of the worst things in gaming history, in my opinion.
Are you talking about like Elder Scrolls Online kind of game? Or
any game that... there's games out there that will require you to be signed in online to play it no matter what. As just a flat-out circumstance.
And, the thing... People have asked me all the time, since I have been in the industry for a very long time, what my view of that is. And to be honest with you, I would love nothing more than to have an environment where everything requires you to be online. Not because I want to be the guy to check to see what you're doing, but I like to imagine that we could live in a world that we don't have to be concerned about server disruptions, ISP interruptions, power outages, things that are beyond your control that would have a major factor in whether or not you can play that title. And then, of course, you have the things that sit in the back of my head, which is, well, if this company goes out of business or decides that they no longer want to support this title, or they decide that, the servers they have that they're running this thing just are, not cost effective and they just want to get rid of it. All these factors that sadly negate that idea.
And that's bring those together, it runs that risk that if you, forbid, had a digital game that was online only, and now both those services are out, you basically went from a $60 game to absolutely worthless space on your hard drive that does nothing, that you can't access anymore, you can't operate, you can't do anything with. At least a physical copy, it's not taking up space, and you have at least a nice paperweight at the end of the day. And that's nice. I'm someone who also likes the collection. I like having all the cases, and I like having everything there, and there's something about a physical copy, but it's probably because we've grown up in the physical copy world.
And honestly, there's no other smell like a new game smell.
Yeah.
Sure.
Pull it right out of the plastic, open it up, smell it.
So, and the other problem that we have with online games, especially if you're going to buy a major title that is incredibly huge, is the fact that, we have major ISPs out there like Comcast, of course, is a big one, which is instantiating data caps. They don't like to call it that, but that is technically what it is. I don't care what you tell me. That is what essentially it is. They may not cut you off, but the bottom line is that they're requiring that you pay more than what you're originally paying for what you're quote-unquote supposed to be paying for unlimited broadband. It's always on. You should be able to use it to your heart's content, get that speed that you're paying for without having to worry about how much you're actually using. But the problem is with all these games that are, 20, 30, 40, even 50, 60 gigabytes in total space, that means that, well, hey, I just blew maybe, I don't know, a tenth of my total month's bandwidth. And not to mention, you have Windows 10, which came out over the summer, which, it does build updates all the time, which means that you're essentially downloading a new copy of the operating system every time.
I don't know. It's just me and working on my laptop. It's just, I don't know if that's relevant. I'm still learning a whole lot about technology and what it does. But the one thing that really, really, really grinds my gears is turning on my laptop and saying, "I'm going to shut your computer down in the next 10 minutes before I update it. You need a new update for your laptop." I was like, "What the heck was wrong with it before? It ran just fine."
Yeah.
I don't know what the heck kind of updates they're looking for.
A lot of these are security updates, things that most people aren't going to be able to understand what they do. So, trust me, I totally understand the aggravation of that, because you just want to get in, get out,
do watch my Netflix in peace.
Do what you want to do, and then leave it. But I mean, although I'm not a big fan of the way that Windows 10 does its updates, I think one of the reasons why it had to be done that way, and I'm sure the answer that I'm going to give is not going to be very popular, but that's okay. Most people are not security analysts. But the bottom line is that if you don't force that methodology, those updates will never get done, and that operating system will be sadly, left behind in the dark as far as its security updates that may be available, and being able to close holes that Microsoft and whatever vendor it is may be fixing. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I definitely feel the aggravation of that, because trust me, I hate myself when I'm trying to do something, especially something that's time critical, that I'm trying to make sure gets done very quickly, and hey, I've got to wait for this update to be applied. But I mean, like I said, the sad reality is that if you don't set aside the time, and for me, I mean, that's not as big of a deal.
Yeah.
But for others, they would just turn updates off, period. They would never do updates. And of course, the problem that we have now with the way online technologies are working, there are certain technologies that are, being deprecated, which means, for example, I mean, SSL version 2, I know these things may not make sense to a lot of people, but SSL version 2 has been deemed insecure for a very long time. And although that's an option to use in your browser for encryption, that's something that has been universally turned off across the board. But recently, and I mean recently within the last year or two, you've had SSL version 3 being deemed insecure, which means that there was this race for all of these providers to turn that off on the server level, and of course on the network level, which would be the connector to the back end from the outside world. Your load balancers, DMZ, things like that. Again, things you may not understand. But basically the thing that connects the outside...
totally going over my head.
Yeah, that's okay. but to those people who may be listening, this may make better sense. But it's basically the thing that connects the outside world, the user, to the network that you're trying to connect to, and of course the servers that are sitting behind there. There's this race to turn all that stuff off. And of course you're now left with a very small amount of available technologies that can still do encryption that your browser may not allow. Like, for example, I know that for a while after all this happened and server administrators were turning all this stuff off, that Firefox, Chrome, Internet Explorer would complain, "Oh, I can't connect to this because I'm only allowed to use version 3 of SSL." And TLS, which is another major encryption methodology that's used today, isn't available or isn't allowed to run. So as a result, you just get this really weird error, and you're just like, well, that's weird. It used to work. It doesn't work now, so what's the problem? So it's one of those things where that, other technology or level of encryption, in this case, has to be enabled, which on most computers is not. So it's one of those things that you got this disconnect between the users and the administrators.
And that's where those forceful updates come in.
And if you don't force that kind of methodology to do updates, and Firefox is a good example. They pushed out an update a while back after all this happened to basically say, yeah, SSL version 3 is not secure, so it's not enabled. You can still enable it, but you got to go into some very deep options to turn it on, because the major security firms out there have deemed that it just is not secure, because it can be easily bypassed, and or the stuff you're trying to have encrypted can essentially get de-encrypted through, at least from somebody who may be attempting to hack the system through very easy means from their perspective. Mm-hmm. To your perspective, the means that they would have to go through to actually compromise you are very intricate. But to them, not really. That could be something they may do every day. Something they may understand that others don't.
It's not like I'm plotting against the government or anything. What are they going to take from me?
Well, and that's the thing. A lot of people think, well, I'm just a guy. I don't have anything. Well, that's the thing. If you're just a guy and you don't have anything, well, guess what? You're a relatively clean slate. They can compromise your your credit, your financial situation, the fact that you may not have credit or may have very little credit history and may take advantage of that.
The scarier flip side is that you may not be aware that something's happening to you, and it makes you the perfect victim.
Yep. So that's that's definitely something that everybody needs to be aware of. Is that if you're a nobody, that could be a prime target for somebody attempting to compromise you, whether it be for any type of game, financial, blackmail, anything really, to take advantage of you just because you're just not aware. And in fact, that's why we have the problems we do, because most people choose to just not be aware.
Yeah.
And they don't understand how easy it is just to click a link and boom, now your computer is now being controlled by somebody on the other end of the world, and you would never know unless, somebody on the network side saw these connections being opened up that shouldn't be, which is not something a internet provider would typically be monitoring. Unless there was
It's
a reason.
not a priority for them.
Well, no, it's just that it's not a reason to. It's another concern of privacy as well. We can talk about the NSA and all the stuff that they do to monitor us, but the bottom line is that unless there's something major going on, malware attack,
I mean, honestly,
whatever.
To be 100% honest, since I'm not like plotting against the government or anything, I would rather have the NSA listening to me than somebody that's actually trying to take advantage of me.
Yeah.
The NSA is actually looking for people who are big dickbags trying to blow people up.
That if you have someone at least there that's at some level looking out for you in a way too.
But that's
that's
but the
the
problem though with that mentality is they're not going to flat out tell you if there's a problem, because guess what? Then that there's this thing going on that shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm. Which kind of makes sense to kind of keep things in secret.
But again, what's
Maybe
the
not
point?
aliens, because I'm pretty sure aliens are.
But what's
real.
the point of them monitoring you if you get compromised, or your systems get compromised, or your network gets compromised? What's the point of them monitoring you if they're not going to tell you about it?
Sure. And I think that's kind of the whole thing with government too, is how we like to regulate, but we don't want to educate.
Trust me, I see.
That is wow.
Well, trust me, I see your point here, but I mean, like, you already know that outside of here, I run major networks, and guess what? None of the stuff that you ever see me with are ever going to touch those networks, because although you can say whatever you want, I do a relatively good job inspecting things down to the firmware level, the hardware level, to ensure that instructions that are not supposed to be running there, things that you guys would not even understand to begin to fathom how that works, aren't running, and things that may be sitting there waiting for an opportunity to attack, which is another thing that happens is you have viruses and malware and software that may be used negatively or against a network, could be sitting there for 10 years undetectedly and just waiting for its opportunity for no one to be looking and or for something to be happening that they're wanting to happen, so that they can launch it and of course sabotage something, or watch what's going on inside the network, or do this, do that. Everyone has their reason for, especially when it comes to a major compromise, as far as why it was done. It could be financial, could be, somebody just wanted to exploit the whole.
Yeah.
And of course the service provider just wasn't taking it seriously, which is another thing that we see. I've seen time and time again where somebody notified the provider and gave them all the technical details and gave them quite a bit of time to fix the hole, and they didn't. And they pretty much just ignored it. So you have people like me who do those, not necessarily hack or compromise people, but look for things because that's part of what I do, and report back to the customer.
It's something you're aware of.
And it's something I'm aware of so that they can be aware of. Now, whether or not they fix that hole, well, that's up to them, and I can tell them how to do it. But my big thing is not, my end goal is not necessarily to make this insane amount of money doing it. It's more, the altruism of saying, here's a problem that you could save yourself,
You have the know-how.
the detriment of getting compromised, and close this big hole that may have been there for a long time. There was a major vulnerability in Linux systems for a very long time that a lot of people knew about, but nobody knew how to really take care of it without just completely
Dismantling.
just completely not running that thing on the system. And the problem with that is that's a very crucial part to what most people are running on a Linux system. So as a result, it wasn't really something that you could have just removed, because like everything that was the reason why that system was there requires it. And I mean, yeah, there are some situations where it can be removed, but it's kind of like, well, what's the point of removing it if my database application, whatever, requires this in order to actually be here?
That's way over my head.
It is. And again, this is for all the technical people out there. So, going back to the original point, sad reality, and we've already brushed on the fact that I kind of hate this methodology as well. And I mean, it can be a pain in the ass because it can totally interrupt things that you're trying to do or interrupt production systems. I mean, every once in a while, I'll have to interrupt the service that never goes down, or it's never supposed to go down.
Yeah.
Just to reboot. But the problem is that those reboots need to happen. And if they don't, then sadly, these updates would never get pushed, and they have to. I would say that maybe 95% of...
All percentages are made up?
No. 95% of ways to not compromise yourself. Not that this is the end all, because if you take this step and ignore everything else, well, that just kind of negates everything. But if you do all of your routine patches, OS patches, Java, Flash, all your typical things that you might use, you pretty much have taken 95% of the steps that you need to do to actually ensure that you're safe on the net. Now, if you go and reply to phishing emails or click links in phishing emails where you're going to quote unquote validate your username and password against, Facebook with 2Ks.com. Well, you just gave that rogue website their your username and password, and now they can do whatever they want with it. And here's the thing: a lot of people don't know that when that stuff does happen, there's a choice that can be made on the other end. Do they use it right away, or do they save it for later?
Yeah.
Like a year later, or 2 years later.
Like when you misspell red tube.
Yeah.
By accident, and then accidentally, you fly through the letters and type in rest tube, or rest tube.
Exactly. And
some other crazy porno site.
I mean, you wouldn't believe how many emails I get from Facebook type messages that are trying to disguise themselves as Facebook that look legit, but if you do just some basic inspection, you can tell that not only is it being sent from obviously a domain name that just wouldn't be sending that kind of mail, but you look at it and you're just like, yeah, Facebook would never send me this type of email even if they needed to.
Yeah.
So
if they did, I think if they throw it in like on your newsfeed, or
probably
throw it in some sort of immediate notification instead of an email.
Yep.
On their own home turf instead of just spreading their wings and going out through everything, trying through every form of communication. I think everyone would notice if Facebook had a problem.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Oh, yes.
There's no will. There is a do. But yeah, I mean, that's the sad reality of the world that we live in, is that everything, needs to be constantly looked after and constantly updated. Because, I mean, as things happen, we all find new, and good and bad people, we all find new ways of doing things. Again, for the good or the bad, whether it's to compromise the system intentionally for monetary gain or to do it just to see what we need to do to close the holes out there. And as such, those holes need to be closed. And of course, if we're not doing those updates, then we're just leaving these holes open. And guess what? It only takes one of those holes to screw your life forever.
This is some real shit.
It is. And guess what? There are millions and millions and millions of vulnerabilities out there. Millions.
This is
And
difficult to think about.
and there's more and more every day growing for the Mac operating system. So Mac users don't think you're safe just because you run Mac. Yeah, it's true. There's a lower amount of viruses, malware, what have you available, but that doesn't mean that you're protected or immune from any of that. And guess what? Neither is Linux. And by the day, we're seeing more and more viruses and malware becoming available for Linux systems. Because you have to bear in mind, Unix and Linux was originally developed to be a secure system. And although, yes, it is relatively secure compared to other platforms out there, that, like I said, compared to Mac, that doesn't mean it's immune or protected from viruses or malware or anything like that. Still needs to be looked after, still needs to be patched, still needs to be configured so that it's locked down. And the appropriate steps have to be taken to ensure the security and reliability of said platform.
Yeah.
Because, of course, if your servers are going to get hacked, well, you just kissed the reliability of your servers goodbye.
To say, I apologize for that awkward silence in between the spiels. But when Vinny brought up the Macintosh products that how you're not really safe, and I had a lot of thoughts run through my head about my transition from Apple products to Android. I recently just switched over to Kia Cera Hydro Icon phones. They're freaking awesome. And to a different phone carrier because Verizon is charging me $115 a month for 12 gigabytes and unlimited talking text.
And you know what the great thing though?
It's ridiculous.
You know what the great thing about Android is?
Don't get Verizon. That's not no tie to great thing about Android, but yeah, don't get Verizon.
Well, I mean, we've already talked about that. Verizon isn't bad. It's just like all the major carriers out there.
It's ridiculous how much
they're
they
just
charge.
price gouging you essentially.
I mean, I could use that money to eat.
Well, but anyway, just real quick, going to what I want to talk about. I really love how back in September, and you wouldn't be able to do this with the iPhone. Back in September, we noticed pretty much right away that there was a problem with Google Play services as a result of an app update. And as I've said before in various threads and what have you, we all don't really know how it happened. And neither, as far as I understand, the manufacturer doesn't know, Google doesn't know. It appears that a symbolic link or an actual copy of the library for a very important system library that has everything to do with Google Play services either was removed or just went missing. Now, we don't know why that would happen because that type of operation would require root access. But anyway, as soon as it happened back in mid-September, and you wouldn't be able to do this on iPhone, we developed a pretty easy fix that although, a typical user wasn't going to be able to discover on their own, if you put the device in debug mode, you go, oh, well, it's complaining it can't load this library, and that looks pretty important. And of course, all you have to really do is search the file system using File Explorer, which is what I have always used, for that particular file, and you go, oh, well, here's a copy. Don't necessarily know if it's the same file that it's really asking for. And, we copied it over to the appropriate file system that it was complaining about, and oh, sure enough, the problems just went away. So something cool that you can do on Android that you really wouldn't be able to do with other major phone manufacturers and operating system providers like Apple and Microsoft. And I think that's cool that, you can do that. Now, of course, there are some risks with doing that, but as far as I'm concerned, if you're an informed user, like most people, not all, but most people who use Android, you're not going to have any of those problems. And I mean, we already have seen in the last few weeks that Apple's not immune to those problems. They've, had a decent number of infected apps get approved. And, a lot of devices out there got infected as a result.
And I don't know. That kind of stuff just really, really grinds my gears. I would just, like, for example, before Vinny and a few other people around the country have put their brains together and fixed the problem with the Play Store.
Well, and I should clear that up right away. I wouldn't necessarily say a group. We all kind of a whole bunch of us kind of came up with it on our own. So some steps I mean, I don't think any of them were really identical. They all had the same idea as far as that there was this thing that was missing and we had to get it there somehow.
Well, and I said it in that fashion because I wasn't exactly sure how it went down. I didn't
Sure.
know. Obviously, there wasn't really a whole lot of communication because there was some bullshit that went down. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have to clarify that for the people out there, especially those listening later, just because, with me, as a lot of people out there who are very familiar with the way I do things, for me, it's just to let the people know I had this problem, and there's probably a lot of people out there who have this problem too. So here's what I did to do it. If you have any questions, you can email me. I most likely will respond. But if you're asking a question and being asked about it, I'll probably just ignore you for a while. But the bottom line is that a whole bunch of people figured out that this was the problem, came up with similar solutions. On my blog post, I didn't tell you how to obtain what I call pseudo root access in the way that I did it to obtain root to actually make this change. But the bottom line is I basically just told you the basic idea of what I had to do to get the problem working. Didn't tell you how to get root access. If you wanted to try this, you can do it on your own. You can figure out how to get root access on your own, but that's not really something I'm going to help you with. Mm-hmm. And there was some interesting things that occurred as a result of that whole thing. As you guys know, some BS, and unfortunately, that did require contacting the authorities. And of course, they are continuing to handle it. So don't think that just because you want to get nasty with somebody or you want to start doing things that are not necessarily legal, don't think that you're immune from your own laws in your locale. Because guess what? Especially if you deal with me, those laws will be tested. And
you'll be put back in your place.
And especially if you did something wrong. Not that I'm perfect, but I'm not going to go beyond the law to, tell you how to do things. But, if that's the way you're doing it, then you will be put in your place, and not by me directly, but by law enforcement, who of course are the ones that oversee that type of thing. So, just be careful what you do out there. Online activities are tracked and monitored in a variety of ways. You can hide your tracks, but ultimately, if authorities want to find you, they will find you. So just be careful.
But on a happy note, thank you to, if you happen to be listening and you put forward the effort to try to fix the Google Play Store, thank you for somebody who had nothing to do with it, but at the same time, is very grateful for being fixed, because now I can finally save my Clash of Clans village on my Google Play Store.
Absolutely.
So if I lose my phone, I can re-download it, and it's the shit.
So, and that's the thing.
That is a stressful situation right there.
What, not being able to save your...
Yes, what happens is your phone just completely crashes. You're like, oh shit, now I have to start over and put another $20 into this game.
Well, another thing is that, this is exactly similar to my point. You required something that required talking to the Google Play Store. Well, there are other apps that I have that, run locally on your device, but they will not run until they do a license check from the Google Play Store. So if it can't do it, well, you won't be able to run your app. And that sucks. But
I'm still learning a whole lot about this because I was mainly an Apple guy for a long time. I always used iPhones and iPod Touches and iPod Videos when they first came out, and all the apps that came along with them. So I'm just learning a whole lot about how Androids work. I'm very new to the Android world. And
there's reasons behind why that change was made. It was primarily a carrier change. And not to say that they don't support iPhone. It's just that from an affordability standpoint, you're not gonna find that with an iPhone. I'm sorry, guys.
And a convenience standpoint too.
Convenience.
Yeah, that too. I feel like you could do a whole lot more with an Android. You get a lot more capability and freedom to do what you want with your phone versus having just a static kind of feel to your phone. It's like, here, this is your call button, this is your what button, this is how you do this. Android's more of you can turn your background to a moving matrix. But I'm very, very simple and easily amused. So that kind of stuff is fun to me.
Yeah. And me personally, I do this primarily because I'm in the industry to solve very complex problems. So, if I can help a brother out, so to speak, because I solved a problem that I had, which is just about most of the solutions you'll find are because I specifically had a problem, me personally. And I was like, I know that a lot of people have this problem, and here it is, and it's not really hard. And that's most cases what the deal is. It's not a hard solution, but it's not one that most people would really think of. And in fact, somebody, in regards to this issue that I had contacted the authorities in regards to, told me that one of the things that you can use to get help in some situations in regards to some of my posts, he said that it was really obscure. And I'm like, yeah, there's a reason for that. Primarily because if I get especially from the technical perspective, if I get a lot of that stuff like embedded in other places like forums, what have you, where they may be talking about these things, well, guess what? Now my day job has just become just talking to people about how to solve their problems, to monitor these other forums, other places to communicate problems about their device. And as I told this individual, because he basically asked if next time I come out with a post like this, and this is another thing, I'm like, well, I don't really know that a post is going to drive this much of a problem. At least the problem that was had. Anyway, we're not going to tell you what it is. But the bottom line is, he asked if I could, post it on some forums. And I'm like, no, I don't really have time for that. I'm like, you don't understand how some people just don't have time for that. It's one thing if I post it on my blog, and of course you can search it on Google and find it. And I guess another caveat with that whole thing was that because of some issues with search engine optimization on the service that we're talking about, that particular post didn't get cached for a while. Like, I don't think it got cached for like a month and a half maybe. So, I mean, you could still find it, but the bottom line is that, it would appear in search results.
Yeah.
But, like, if you went to go find a cache copy of it somewhere, you weren't going to get that cache copy. It basically would look like that post never existed. So even if you found a cache copy of the entire listing, that post just wouldn't be there. And the person that we had problems with called me out on it and said, well, the PID, is higher than it should be based on what is actually the current highest post. And I'm like, you're not obviously a technical person. And if you are, you don't understand how somebody can customize the site so that it randomizes that PID, so it doesn't matter if it's higher or lower than the previous post. That's just what it chose. And I had to point out that if you look at previous posts, some of them are that way too. The process ID, which is usually a 3 or 4 digit number, just to identify the content, is either higher or lower. And I'm like, that doesn't matter. That's chosen at random. That's not a thing that the content management system decides. That's not something I decide. That's something that is automatically generated by the system, and that's primarily because that's how I have it coded. And it's primarily so that I don't have to worry about entries in the database and worrying about other process IDs getting screwed up or what have you. Because then there's also other things that are not typical as far as the construction of this content management system that you'd find out of the box with others. So as a result, you can't just look at mine and go, well, this looks different than, somebody else's. So as a result, things may look weird. And to me, I understand why that is. And to others, they don't. And they assume things. And that's not really my problem. I tell you how it is. And if you don't like that answer, well, tough.
Tough kumquats. I'll just say Drake and Josh. I love that show.
Hey, aren't they doing a reunion?
Huh?
Aren't they doing a reunion at some
I
point?
hope so. Drake.
I think
Drake.
they are.
With the
Josh
Solid
Peck
Kick
is-
2016, I'm pretty sure we'll see just about anything could be happening.
Oh man. Yeah. I think I'm running out of things to say. I don't really know what to bring up now.
That's okay, but we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about a little bit more. Welcome back, everyone, to the VinnyMac's 9 radio show podcast, the most radioactive show on the planet. Thanks so much for tuning in. I am the one and only DJ Vince VinnyMac.
And I'm Matthew Sarasi Johnson.
And I'm MC Percolator coming at you with the facts.
He is in the house.
In his house? Tiny Rick?
And yes, it's Tiny Rick. Thank you so much, brother.
Absolutely. And it's been such a blast once again to be able to, again, third episode here with everybody, enjoying every moment with every single person here. Again, every single one of you has a story to tell. Make sure you give us some love and some comments. If you have any questions or want some stuff for us to talk about, make sure to tweet out to me. I'll be able to, more than happy to add that to my little schedule of what we should talk about. And get that, make sure we get that taken care of as well.
I appreciate your accent, sir. I'm new to this whole podcast and entertainment jazz. So if you are interested in looking me up because you want to see this sexy face.
Everyone wants to see that sexy
Oh my
face.
gosh, it's just the nose that gets the ladies. I'm maybe the chin beard in my profile picture. You can tweet out to me. It's MC Percolator. It's spell it MCPERKYALATA.
And
With an @ sign before that. I don't know. I'm new to the Twitter thing too.
If you're confused about how to spell that because you're just like tired, because I'm sure most people are, you can go to mcp.gamechumps.tv. That's MCP for MC Percolator. .gamechumps.tv, and you'll be redirected to his Twitter page.
That is incredibly convenient. You should probably follow his advice instead of mine.
And same with Rossi. If you want to be redirected to his Twitter page, you can go to rossi.gamechumps.tv. You can also go to what did I do for mine? I don't know. You can just go to VinnyMacRadio.com or VinnyMac.tv and check out all the cool stuff we have there. You can check out the previous episodes of the podcast. You can check out everything that I'm up to, ways to follow me, ways to follow the Game Chumps crew, and all that fun stuff. Hopefully we'll have the archive on Mixcloud and YouTube, hopefully within the next 24 hours. And hopefully the show notes as well. If you want to see everything we covered tonight, in addition to all the tracks played, both in the pre-show and during the show, you can go to VinnyMacRadio.com, click on the podcast link, and then you can click on the show notes link. Usually that takes a little while to get up, to get the show notes up.
Just a minute.
What's funny is that I have them prepared usually after the show, but I don't know, being the perfectionist I can be sometimes, I'm usually dead after the show and I go to sleep and then I forget about it for a week and, you know.
Hey, no one's perfect.
But the bottom line is that it'll be up there eventually. I think it took 2 weeks to get episode 1302 show notes up there. Really wasn't a whole lot to actually put on the show notes for that episode, primarily because most of what I actually put up there was just the track info. And of course, you all know what we covered during that episode, which was Temwag and Rossi's experience.
Heart to heart.
Our journey going forward. And of course, if you want to do some meetups with us, we do have some opportunities to meet up in the upcoming 2016 calendar.
Yes.
We have PAX South coming in January if you want to hang out with Vinny, myself, and Tenwug. And if you want to get a chance to meet all of the Game Chumps crew all in one space, we're all going to be at MagFest this year, coming in February.
It's going to be the tops.
It's going to be awesome, guys.
And definitely...
We're getting Ricky Rick, son!
Tiny Rick!
Tiny Rick, what?
Absolutely look forward to the chance to meeting every single one of you. Don't be a stranger. I want to make sure that you guys know that you're absolutely loved here. And any bit of talking and fun, excitement, I'm always just a tweet away.
Yep, and likewise, you can catch me on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch TV, Hitbox, all the major platforms at DJ Vince VinnyMac. You can check me out on Facebook at user VinnyMac. Again, you can go to VinnyMacRadio.com. Everything's all there. It's all cool. You can check out my About page. Like I said, grab a Snickers. I don't work for the Snickers company, which I guess is what, a Mars candy?
Maybe.
Well, I don't work for them, but that's the saying, grab a Snickers, because it's going to be a long time reading this thing. Because I've been in the industry for a very long time, and I'm still apparently a young guy, even though I've been doing it for a long time. Do you have any closing thoughts? MCP?
MCP, stay in school, don't do drugs.
Stay in school, don't do drugs. That's pretty.
I'm kind of brain dead after this. This has been a long podcast.
No, that is a solid ending from MC Puckaletta.
And every single one of you, hope you've had a great 2015. When we're returning back in 2016, I want to make sure that even if for some reason you didn't have a good 2015, 2016 is a brand new experience for you. It's time to take it by storm. We're going to have some fun along the way. So keep strong, keep ready, and make an awesome impression in 2016 to come.
And absolutely look forward to going to MagFest and possibly hearing Sarasi and I break out into Disney song and going a cappella with our own freestyle lyrics.
Who knows?
To the tune of different Disney songs.
That could be January's podcast. Who knows?
Ooh, don't. Hey, that's a spoiler.
That would be a super spoiler.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning into the VinnyMac's 9 Radio Show podcast, episode 1303, coming to you live from the VinnyMac Productions live studios here in Central Virginia. It's been a blast. Until next time, as always, stay true to yourself, keep it live, and we'll catch you next time. We're out. I'm Tiny Rick.
There's nothing you can do to me. You've inflicted all the pain that you ever will, and now I don't wanna see your face. Every second I think about you, it's time that I waste. There's a smooth steel cage around my heart. The first time you almost got in, and that's why I gotta forget about you. Gotta leave you far behind. Gotta keep moving forward, girl. I've got a smooth steel cage wrapped around my heart. It's not made of stone that can be weathered away. Dead cold as only steel can be. There's no emotion to see, and it's all because of you. I don't wanna be your lover. I don't wanna be your friend. Don't wanna be undercover. I'm so glad this is the end, girl. You don't seem to understand that all you cause me is pain. All you care about is yourself. I don't wanna go through that again. I said I don't wanna be your lover. I don't wanna be your friend. Don't wanna be undercover, girl. I've got a smooth steel cage wrapped around my heart. It's not made of stone, it can't be weathered away. Oh, as honest as it can be. No emotion to see, and it's all because of you. Don't try to get me back, it won't work. Don't try to call my friends, they don't care. No one can do the things you did to me. I said I'm dead cold, as only steel can be. There's no emotion to see, and it's all because of you.